welcome to the Pulse Collective podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of the PCP, otherwise known as the Pulse Collective podcast. I'm your host, Shahrukh Ansari, the PCP for all of our new watchers, visitors, if you're actually listening to this audibly as well. It's a new podcast where we sit down with top business leaders and entrepreneurs to help uncover their journeys, any lessons that they've learned along the way, and really enable our audience when it comes to sales, marketing, or any business tips that we can actually provide for our audience as well. For those of you watching or listening, we are Pulse Collective. We're a growth partner for businesses all across the country. We help them multiply their revenue, unlock their potential through AI-powered systems. If you're looking for proven ways to not just attract more clients, but boost retention and elevate your overall customer experience, you're here in the right place. Drop us a message below and I'll get somebody from our team to reach out and to see if it's a right fit. Now, today I'm very, very excited because I'm joined by Snow and Liam, the CEO and co-founder of Runbear.io, the company that's building AI agents that plug directly into team tools like Slack, Microsoft Teams. I'm sure a lot of us are aware of those, to automate your workflows and amplify team productivity. Together, Snow and Liam are helping shape how AI is operationalized inside organizations and enterprises, making automation accessible to non-technical teams and redefining how work gets done in this new age of intelligent systems. Snow and Liam, very, very excited to have you on. Welcome to the show.
Hi, nice to meet you, and nice to meet you, the PCP audiences. Thank you very much for having us here. I'm Snow, I'm CEO of Runbear, and I'd love to learn more about the other fellow founders and then audiences, and also share our experiences with them.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you for introducing us, Farouk, and I'm really excited for this one.
Awesome. Let's have a fun conversation. Let's have fun with it. So Snow, Liam, can you really kick us off by sharing a little bit about what both of you do in the present? What are your roles currently? And tell the audience what Runbear is all about.
Great. Yeah, as Shahrukh, you introduced, we are building the DIY AI agent tools for teams. So any non-technical people can quickly build their own AI agent and use them right inside of their communication channels like Slack, Teams, and also they can let the AI agent do the many things like drafting emails or handling the files recently uploaded to the Google Drive, that kind of things. And I'm CEO. I'm taking over most of the part except the building the product. I'm technical founder. I love building. I love writing code, especially these days using AI to build more features. However, Liam and I decided to split our roles, and now I'm fully focusing on a business side, including marketing, sales, and mostly about the growth part.
Very nice. And Liam, yourself?
Yes, I'm also a co-founder of Runbear, and I work as CTO here. And I mostly oversee some technical details and delivering the right features and the right amount of technology to really help especially for non-technical leaders who are trying to enhance their day-to-day workflow, but like still struggling with securing engineering resources to like build their own real AI workflow for to let them focus on really important stuff. We want to bring our tools like more easier and easier every day. So like click this and this to easily like build agent within minutes instead of struggling with like weeks of building and testing, releasing. That's all like a burden for every busy leader. So we are taking that part.
That's very cool. Coming from an enterprise technology background, I definitely see a lot of companies finding value when it comes to having these AI agents, because especially from a sales and marketing perspective, I find it very interesting that you say to no code. So people who are not technical can easily leverage these tools. How exactly, for our non-technical audience, can you explain the actual use case? If I am, for example, a sales rep who's at a company and I'm doing some research about a potential prospect and I want to learn a little bit more about them, maybe I had a call with them in the past, how does this potentially help me when I'm preparing for future conversations with this prospect?
Great, great. Yeah, thank you for asking. Please understand that Runbear is optimized for the communication heavy use cases. So there are many teams that getting a lot of inquiries from the externally from the client or customers. Also, there are teams getting a lot of message internally, like a HR team, finance team, product team. And since Runbear is a building tool, it can be considered as the horizontal SaaS. So any kind of teams can build their own AI agent and then automate their communications. And because of that, we had supported many use cases, including onboarding new hires or answering questions from the sales team about the product or the policy. And also, there are the support teams, account managers, who always ask a lot of the questions about the product policies, compliances, and more. And they can build their own AI agent. And then when they put that agent inside of their primary communication channels like Slack, those agents monitors that kind of messages. And even though they are not directly asked, they jump into the conversations and deliver the informations so that the external teams or clients, they can get the answer much
Wow.
faster.
So essentially, there's multiple use cases here. So not just necessarily for sales teams, it could be for marketing teams, it could be for people on the operations side of the business, the customer service as well. I think a lot of people, and I'm curious about your backgrounds because prior to starting Runbear, both of you, to my understanding, this is not your first entrepreneurial venture. So if you can tell us a little bit about your past, any ventures that you went down before and what may have led you to start Runbear?
Liam, do you want to introduce?
Yes. So we go back to like 16 or 15 years ago. At that time, we are like college students, and we started up building communication tools for college students. But our entrepreneurship journey was been mostly building consumer product at the early part of our career. And we have built several successful mobile services throughout South Korea and US. And our second journey include having a large mobile app service running in India also. So it's been quite a journey. And since we are both technical and computer science major, it was pretty much natural for us to like see for some opportunities around the mobile era and increasing penetration of smartphones, something like that. So that's been quite a journey. And after our second startup, we decided to. So we were acquired by another ad tech company in South Korea, which is called BuzzVille. And during that period, we also worked as leaders of a product team, and Snow worked as a CPO there, and I was leading the infrastructure department. So during that time, we learned more about like how larger teams work together to satisfy different demands of customers, advertisers, publishers, and end users. So at that time, we learned really how larger firms have some difficulties working with other teams or other teammates, and especially with other companies. So they are dealing with lots of customers and partners. So it is really pain. The communication is really pain for everybody. Yeah, we realized that if we could cut down like more than 50% of the communication heavy or like cognitive load, then we can really empower them to focus on what really matters. So that's why we started Runbear, and we tried everything to find how we can relieve that kind of communication heavy headaches for teams. And since then, figured out like almost more than like 80% of their day-to-day communication happens in Slack or MS Teams. So yeah, let's do something there. That was how we
That's
started.
very cool. That's very cool. I think this would be a good follow-up question for both of you. So for many people, they might be on their first entrepreneurial venture, they might be on their second and they failed before, but what would you say is the most valuable experience or the most valuable piece of advice that both of you have received that has allowed you to get to the point that you're at today?
Wow. That's a really good question. And that makes me think about the right answer, the
It
good
can be
answer. I totally, yeah. Okay. So l- let me elaborate a little bit. This is our third startup. We sold the first startup to the big company, one of the biggest company in Korea, Kakao. The second company to the bigger startup, BuzzVille. And then through the journey, we learned a lot, of course. And I usually pick one top lessons learned for each startup. So when we started the first one, we were really young. We were college students. And at that time, the mobile application was booming up, and we wanted to make something that we want, that looks fancy, that looks cool. And that's why we built multiple mobile applications and let them release it. And we learned a lot. However, we didn't start the company with the mission and vision. Because of that, every time when we start a new service, when we launch a new service, there was no common things, common mission in there. So we launched a dating service, we launched the healthcare service, we launched the social media services. And after we sold our company, we realized that there was a lot of things that we were able to learn more and made it much bigger if we move forward with the lessons learned. So we consider that this kind of mistake was happened because we didn't have the clear mission and goals. So that was the first lesson from my first company. The second one, as Liam shared, we launched the service in India, and then we had the team in India. However, our headquarters was in Korea, and most of the team, including us, the founding team and founders, we were staying in Korea while visiting the India from time to time. And we consider that we are running the B2C service, we are seeing the data, we are the developers, and we can handle all the things in Korea since we have operation team in India. And after we sold our company, I also realized that we needed actually live in India to actually understand the market, the customers, their needs, to grow faster and make the right decision in the right moment. And when I think about that, I made some of the decision a little bit late or made some mistakes because we weren't there. That was my second lesson. We need to live in the market. We need to stay close with the customers. And those two lessons, big lessons, made us to lead here. So we are living in San Mateo in the Bay Area, California. And our primary customers are living in the US, mostly in the West Coast and the East Coast. And we are from Korea. We moved to the US last year, so quite new to here. The lessons I learned made us to actually relocate to the US with all the whole family and then try to things within
So
the
wait,
market.
did you end up living in India for a few years? Is that what you both did?
At the time, we didn't live in India, and that was one of the
Mhm.
regret I have. So we stayed 1 or 2 months and get back to the Korea, come to the India again. But living in India could made a lot of differences at the
It's
time.
very cool. I honestly, personally, as my own, like the CEO of my own consulting firm, it's very difficult for me to imagine potentially relocating. It's not something that everybody's willing to consider. So for both of you, especially coming from Korea to relocating to the United States, there's a lot of challenges that come with that. Of course, you're close to your customers, but now you have completely different culture, completely different language, completely different everything. So what has been your biggest adjustment since you've come here?
That's a good question. And Liam, actually, Liam moved to the US 2 months ago. I moved to the US last year. So I'd like to listen to Liam's answer about it.
Yeah, I'm still going through everything, and there's whole new life going on with this relocation. So it was a really tough decision, but like it's not tough because like the fear of the language and the cultural differences, but like the fear is that I had to bring my whole family, including my two dogs. It was challenging, and figuring out the visa was one of the hardest part I experienced. And even after I landed here, so like I'm starting to build my everything, like my identity, the driver's license, everything. So it was a journey, and maybe the living expense is also something to consider when compared to Seoul, Korea. So it's a bit quite a bit expensive, and since we are early stage startups, we are pretty low on budget. So everything is really challenging. But I think being closer to customers, that part alone is really a good reason for us to actually be here. Like it's not just about the time difference, but like now I breathe the same air with our customers, and I can feel the real problem and the urgency of the any issues that comes up, and even the AI scene is also moving really fast, but it's not really. I can sense that speed back in Korea is, even though they are very techy city, and they're really into the AI itself, but the real they are not really getting the news, or like they are not leading the day-to-day agenda that this community are caring about. So it's really rewarding for me to be here.
Was I commend both of you. That's not an easy thing to do. So both of you packing up your lives, and of course you were born there, your family's there, you were raised there, and just packing up and taking essentially a leap of faith is what both of you did. Like I hope it pays it back 10 times over. It's very, very inspiring. For myself, I can't imagine that, but at the same time, I'm both Canadian and American, so I'm just outside of Toronto in Canada. Most of our clients are in Canada and the United States, so I will fly for conferences or events just to meet people. But relocating altogether is very. How have you seen the sales and marketing space evolve, especially since the boom of artificial intelligence? Look, for example, let me give you some context. So my team used to have people that would pick up the phones and they were cold calling for 8 hours a day. That was their entire job. Now it's very difficult to make that your only marketing strategy because it's not scalable for people just to be on the phones all day. Once AI came in, we realized, we need less time with people potentially reaching out to prospects and more time speaking to people that are actually part of our ideal customer. So ever since the AI boom and the GPT boom, we started leveraging automation to build our lead lists, actually reach out to people, whether it's via email, whether it's via LinkedIn. Essentially everything was automated. And then once we started getting positive responses to our messaging, those responses were also, we would leverage AI to engage those leads. So we're essentially reducing the time to those positive leads that we're getting. And we instantly noticed a major conversion change because as a former SDR, as a former account executive, my biggest problem was you have way too many hats that you're wearing. You're talking to customers, you're running demos, you're building lists, you're having to do research on prospects. A lot of times, once somebody responds to you, it ends up taking a couple hours before you get back to them. And statistics have now shown us that if you wait more than 5 to 10 minutes, the likelihood of booking meetings with your clients actually go down almost 80 to 90%. So I'm curious now, what we've done is we booked them, people will respond using AI, and the meetings are actually booked automatically into my calendar or my executives' calendars. Our only job is now to show up to these meetings and obviously just be humans. So everything else has been done. I'm curious for you, of course, you're early in your existing venture, but how do you currently manage your business development on the marketing and sales side? And how do you see it evolving over the next year or 2 years?
Yeah. So I second that. So these days, the whole sales process and the messages it's very saturated. I'm getting a lot of messages from the LinkedIn and emails, of course. I'm using the superhuman email clients, and most of the pitch and the sales emails, I don't even see them. So it's not in my site. So I believe that it must be really, really hard, including us, to do the cold outreach and the sales and booking the calls. So I totally understand that it's good to automate things using the AI, and most of the things can be done through the AI, and I'm really a big fan of it. However, from the mark we needed to I think we need to do the something different approach instead of the following up with the old approach. And we also have the great the mentors, sales mentors, and one of our mentor, Eric, he told me that especially this kind of the situations, we also need to start with the things that don't scale, like cold calling, cold not just cold emailing, asking about the warm intro, and then reaching out to people as a human instead of running all the things. We are using Apollo. We are using the many AI tools to the automate outreach. But however, the conversion rate from the cold mail is getting worse these days. Of course, it can be done, but I mean, as a startup, we need to do something differently. So I'm not the right person who can do the sales well because, I'm technical founder. I'm not from the business background. However, I'd like to share my experience about our approach. Now, we are trying to starting from the marketing first and then move forward. So we are publishing the content, we are securing the SEO, and also we successfully secure some of the keywords. So if you search something like using ChatGPT in Slack, you will get Runbear in the search result. And it affects the AI responses. So when you have a chat with your ChatGPT, and if you ask about the solutions that if you want to use AI in Slack and use the ChatGPT in Slack, you'll be able to stumble on Runbear. So this kind of putting our solutions to the market while having collaboration with the creators and also publishing a blog content and publishing them on the social media like Reddit helps us to the uh, inbound customers. And we found out that since we are confident with our solution, when we have the inbound product demo marketing, the conversion rate goes really up. So that's how we have acquired over almost 300 paying companies. And now we really think that we also need to scale that. So we cannot just do the things that worked. So now we are trying to do something differently, including outreach. So I cannot share the details since, we are still working on that, but definitely some creative ways is needed as the Roy, the CEO, clearly mentioned. So these days, GTM can be one of the really big moat or the superpower for the early stage startups.
Right. No, you hit the nail on the head. Like even for, I think most companies nowadays, even enterprises, not even just startups, the entire process is changing. I'm curious on your social media with your ideal client portfolio and or your ideal customer. Do you feel like Meta ads or Facebook or Instagram, do you think running ads is a waste of the resources, or do you feel that, it could potentially lead to more conversions for you?
So I have my previous thoughts and I have current
Let's hear both.
thoughts. Yeah. So I'm more like a old fashioned. I like to learn from the experiences. Love to learn from the books and the other mentors. And so it's an old but good saying that do the things that don't scale. And we shouldn't spend money on the paid ads when we start something. Even if we spend $1,000, $10,000 on the paid ads, the conversion rate can be really low. The most of all, the lessons learned can be low. It's, meeting the people and interviewing them and understanding what they need cannot simply achieve through the paid ads. Of course, we can calculate some of the CPC, ROAS, and many kind of messages that work, but it won't be enough to kickstart something. That is my core thought However, we are facing scaling out. So, I cannot duplicate myself. I cannot meet more customers with limited hours. And I cannot do the many things like publishing more content and spreading them out by myself. So I need to use other leverage like a paid ads and also AI to do the things on behalf of me. And on that perspective, definitely we still need to try paid ads with some of the portion so they find out how we can find more the detailed ICP. And just for your information, so far, our solution considered as the horizontal SaaS. It is good to solve the many problems. However, it is not always good to solve the really deep problem. I mean, we need to, and also we have been working on narrowing down our ICP so that we can deliver more value to the fewer people. So now we are targeting more narrow ICP, especially the customer facing teams, especially account managers who are living in the communication chaos, especially in the digital marketing agency area. Because, those account managers, they need to support their clients in many ways, like reporting performances, answering the questions, supporting the technical issues. And they are getting a lot of emails and they are getting a lot of messages in Slack. However, they cannot leverage AI enough because relationship is so critical for them. They cannot just let AI do that. So our focusing for them is like relationship first AI, that trustable AI that uses their terms, their word, their sentences, and understand the client relationship to support them by expanding our capability of Runbear to automate their over 80% of their admin
That's
work.
fair.
And yeah. Sorry about that. That's a long introduction, but in that perspective, we are trying to do something differently, like narrowing down, finding out the account managers, and then find out how we can book the meetings with them these
I think
days.
that's like you hit the nail on the head. I feel like a lot of people are wasting a lot of money nowadays when it comes to ads. I've had clients that have burned $20,000, $30,000 every month on ad spend, and they don't believe in ads anymore. And you can't blame people once they've been burnt that much. Like, I'm not going to run ads anymore. Even emails, I used to send, I want just myself almost 1,000 emails a day to potential clients. But the reality is, you can disagree with me on this. I've noticed the industry no longer responds to direct outreach. Unless it's a warm lead, a cold person will not. Like, if I'm not going to want to be sold to, you're not going to want to be sold to. You need to provide value up front. So what ended up happening is now what we're doing, for example, if I'm reaching out to a potential client, I will be like, okay, let's give you a free 15-minute audit of your sales environment. Let's see if there is a gap. And if we can identify a gap, you don't need to work with us, but take that as a piece of advice and you can leverage that yourself. Once we started doing things like potentially giving people something on that first outreach, our conversions to appointments went up tenfold. Like, it was day and night. So today we actually don't run any more direct outreach. I actually have nobody calling people anymore. There's no lead lists anymore. Everything is done via email or through meta ads. There's nothing else. So I know we're getting towards the end of our time here, but I want to ask you two other questions, mainly around the evolution of AI as a whole. A lot of people are fearful, understandably, of where the market is headed. You have leveraged AI to make a business, and you have essentially turned that into something that is going to make other people's lives a lot easier. In the next 5 to 10 years, where do you see AI going, and how do you see Runbear evolving as the market continues to change?
Great. Yeah, I have my answer, but I'd like to listen to Liam first.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I can sense that there's both people are getting scared and other people are excited to see what's coming next. And I guess, yeah, people are saying that they are getting replaced by AI and that their job security is real fear. Like I tend to see that most of the engineers now changed how they work. Like they are now not typing anymore. They are like hitting yes to the AI's generated code. So yeah, it's really interesting to see this big transition within just a year or two. I think so. People are saying that the seniority or experience is hard to be replaced, but I don't think it's true anymore. And experience also can be learned by AI. And what really matters is that having discretion and the right uh, information and like AI will answer something that sounds okay, that sounds correct, good, but they are not in that position that the human is on. Like the human is responsible for like hundreds of people, and they are steering the company or they are dealing with real customers. AI can be very tempting, but they are not doing for their own sake. So it is the main difference. So still human has to deal with that. So be responsible. Like as a Tesla owner, I realized that FX is really freeing myself from driving. Now still I have to really focus on what's going on the road and be protect myself. I can't fully rely on that, right? So if the same thing happens for in the business world, so yeah, I have to be really cautious. But uh, the reality is that it drives us to easier, better life, but we also have to really care about the implication behind that.
I love the Tesla example because I've seen people, they're driving their car and they're going to sleep and the car is driving by itself. I could never do that. You can't trust AI. AI will continue to make our lives easier. But at the end of the day, as a human being, if I pick up the phone and I'm not talking to a real human being, or if I'm like, I always give the example, Amazon has been very successful. Amazon, IBM, Microsoft, they've been very successful. They've been on the news recently to lay off a lot of people. However, IBM, for example, once they laid off a big portion of their HR staff and the recruitment staff, they replaced those jobs with a chatbot that essentially runs the entire hiring process. Fast forward 6 months, they ended up hiring 2 times the amount of people for new jobs as opposed to just getting rid of them. So I believe I'm completely in alignment. AI will be the future, but at the end of the day, you cannot remove that personal human touch because as humans, we need to be connected with one another. That's also why both of you are now in the States. You want to be closer to your customers. I think that's very cool. In order to wrap up here, Liam Snow, this has been great. If you can give just in terms of your business, one area that you're now looking to really double down on, like this is an opportunity. And because a lot of other business founders out there are probably going through the same thing. If you could have a magic wand to really focus on one area of your business right now, what's that area of focus for you?
Great, great. Yeah. So I just shared briefly about our new approach, narrowing down, and then I'd like to elaborate a little bit more. So, before we usually categorize the tasks or the goals into the X problem and the 10X problem. So before CRM world, so when people need to take care of their clients, customers, they need to do many manual jobs. They need to memorize it or they